Hello fellow YouTubers, and welcome to episode 6, reading my first self-published novel, Aggravation. And don't you say what I think you're going to say, because that ain't possible. So Clyde said nothing and sipped his tea, fully aware that the longer he remained silent, the more Sandy would want him to say what he didn't want to hear. Go on then, Sandy finally said. Say it. The house is haunted, Clyde said. Now it was Sandy's turn to remain silent. And as Sandy sipped his tea and Clyde sipped his, he was wondering what Sandy was thinking. Sandy was thinking, I knew this place was haunted. So, what do you think about that? But Sandy wasn't about to say what he was thinking. So he said, ain't no such things as ghosts. But Clyde could tell by the tone of his voice and the way he looked away that he wasn't being sincere. Now he knew beyond a doubt that Sandy didn't have his feet planted on the ground as firmly as he led on to be. No. So what else did he know that he wasn't letting on? Did he know that some of the lights in the night sky that he admitted to seeing weren't planes and satellites? Did he know that there is indeed something strange about Tor Hill? I wouldn't mind betting yes to both. Yes, well, I'm not so sure about that, Clyde said. And you yourself said there were rumours that the house was haunted. I'll not deny that, yes. But that's all they are. Clyde was thinking of saying, why do I have the feeling that you don't believe that? But he wasn't sure if he should. Sandy might get his back up, and he didn't want to get into an argument with and risk alienating his friend. So he erred on the side of caution and said, I'm not so sure about that either. Sandy didn't say anything, because Sandy was thinking, next thing I know, he'll go on about all that other stuff he mentioned before. If he keeps going on like this, he'll end up being as cookie as the sisters. You know what Sandy, Clyde said? Breaking the silence. I'm beginning to think that moving to Welcome wasn't such a good idea. Moving anywhere wasn't a good idea. Thought I'd be able to get away from all that noise, only to find I'm living next door to an aggravating cur of a child and his foul-mouthed bitch of a mother. And then there's that loudmouth that lives across the street, and those cretins with their thumping in-car stereo systems. Fucking noise of them makes me so angry I want to kill the lot of them. In the beginning I thought I'd be able to do something about that, but that's another thing I'm not so sure about. Don't even think I can be bothered now. Yet when I first moved here I was happy despite those things. I made friends with you and Louise, and for the first few months I kept myself busy and was content in clearing out the sisters' accumulation. But after a while that began to aggravate me too. Clyde sipped his tea, Sandy his, quite happy to remain silent and let his friend have his say. It was when I commenced to clear out the back shed I became annoyed at the utter futility of it all. Although I think the seed had been planted with all that rubble in the garage. Now whenever I think about that I become angry, seeing my mind's eye those two old women carting all that fucking shit to the garage and stacking it up. Back and forth, over and over and over, as if it was precious to them. And yes, they were hoarders and it was precious to them, or at least they thought it was. That and everything else too. But in the end it all pissed me off. And I can't get out of my head that there was a pyramid buried under Tor Hill and UFOs are visiting it. And to top it all off, the house is haunted. Clyde sat back in his chair then, folded his arms across his chest, looked at Sandy and said, would you like another mug of tea, Sandy? I'd like a stiff drink, Sandy was thinking. But he said, yes, that'd be good, thank you. And then, I think I might step outside and have a smoke. Don't bother, Clyde said. You can smoke in here and feel free to do so. Won't bother me at all. As a matter of fact, I think I might join you. I didn't think you smoked. Only a cigar occasionally. And this is one of those occasions. With a fresh mug of tea before them, Sandy smoking a roll your own and thinking, I'll be buggered if I know what to say. Maybe I should offer to take him out to the forest and set up camp for a day or two, just to prove there's nothing strange about Tor Hill. Clyde puffing a Henry Winterman's half corona and thinking, I wonder what Sandy is thinking. Probably thinking I'm nuts. Can't blame him if he is, because I'm starting to wonder the same thing myself. Clyde, Sandy said. Yes? You ever been camping? No. Would you like to? Clyde puffed on his cigar as he gave consideration, then said, Sure. Why not? It might do me good to get out of the house for a while. Do you have a place in mind? Tor Hill, Sandy replied, then relighted his cigarette with a disposable lighter, thinking, I bet he wasn't expecting that. Clyde hadn't expected that. The pall of smoke billowing from the rapid-fire puffing of his cigar testimony to how uneasy he was with that idea. And as the cloud of smoke slowly rose toward the ceiling, it suddenly dispersed as if caught up in a whirlwind, and both men flinched dramatically. Sandy blurting out, Good God Almighty, what the hell? At the same time Clyde let loose with, What the fuck was that? With his heart racing, eyes wide, his throat, mouth dry, Sandy chuckled nervously and said after the first word, it, wedged in his throat, It must have been the wind. The wind be damned, Clyde thought. He in a state of high anxiety, made all the worse because he was expecting to hear those words again. Finally managing to say after several seconds, with his heart still in his throat, It wasn't the wind, Sandy. Of course it was the wind. Had to be. But Sandy was thinking, You know it weren't the wind, Sandy. You goddamn know it wasn't. But just as Clyde opened his mouth to speak, there was a scream. Muffled, but a scream nonetheless, that made both men jump to their feet as if their legs were spring-loaded. Then another. Clyde, thinking it must have come from next door, wasted no time in heading to the nearest window overlooking the Curtis house, located in the dining room, only to realise then that the television was still on in the lounge room. It's all right, Sandy, Clyde said, it's only the television. I'll just go and turn it off. Back in the kitchen, and seated at the table once again, Clyde said, Sorry about taking off like that, but I thought the screams might have come from next door. Just goes to show how jumpy we are, doesn't it? You can say that again, but why do you think it came from next door? Because that's what that bloody banshee of a woman does. Jesus. Yes, indeed. Anyhow, what I was going to say before the interim was, you don't honestly believe it was the wind that caused the smoke to do what it did, do you? But Sandy didn't answer. Sandy, Clyde pressured. Still Sandy refused to answer. Come on, Sandy. All right, it weren't the wind. There, are you satisfied? Thank you. But don't you go on about UFOs and that goddamn pyramid being under Tor Hill, Sandy shot back. Because there ain't no such things. Clyde smiled and said, Well, that's what you said about ghosts. Ignoring the remark, Sandy said, Yeah, well, anyhow, you haven't given me a yay or no about going camping up that hill. So what's it to be, eh? Clyde nodded his head and Sandy thought he meant yes. But when he stood up and turned to walk away, Where are you going, Clyde? I just remembered I did a load of washing earlier. And if I don't put it in the dryer, then I'm bound to forget about it. You still haven't answered me, Clyde, Sandy said, raising his voice, as Clyde disappeared from view. Blasted man, he mumbled, his head and eyes constantly in motion, not knowing what he expected to see, but knowing he was as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. He glanced at his watch, 9:17. He reached for his tobacco pouch, but then decided he didn't want to smoke. So he picked up his mug instead, but didn't drink from it. Returning the mug to the tabletop, He reached out again for his tobacco pouch, retracted his arm, glanced at his watch. 9:18. Bloody place gives me the creeps. No wonder Clyde's nerves are on a razor's edge. Picking up the mug, he took a sip, winced, swallowed, then said, "Tea's gone cold, Clyde. How about I put the jug on?" It was a rhetorical question he didn't expect an answer to. And when one didn't come, he vacated his chair, walked over to the sink, lifted the jug from the base, filled the jug with water, returned the jug to the base and switched it on. "I just put the jug on, Clyde." Picking up the teapot stand, he removed the lid, placed it on the dish rack, then looked around for his receptacle to place the dregs in. There wasn't one. "I'm just stepping outside to empty the teapot, Clyde." Filling the teapot with water, he mumbled, "Why am I yelling myself hoarse when I'll be walking by the laundry?" For when Sandy drew level the open door of the laundry just off to his right, Clyde wasn't anywhere to be seen. "Where are you, Clyde?" Sandy asked, standing his ground. No reply. The only sound that of a cricket and the rapid beat of his heart. "Come on, Clyde, don't play silly buggers with me. Where are you?" Still no reply. "Clyde," Sandy yelled, "where the hell are you?" I'm over here, Sandy." "Where?" "Just step out the back door and keep coming." "What you doing in the backyard?" Sandy asked, stepping outside. But Clyde didn't answer straight away. Out of pure instinct, Sandy emptied the teapot and left it dangling from the handle in his left hand as he walked slowly toward Clyde, still sight unseen. I don't know why," he heard Clyde say after a few steps. "Why I'm in the backyard." With those words, Sandy was able to zero in on Clyde's position. Half a dozen paces diagonally to his left, he found Clyde standing to the right of the bore pump. "So goddamn dark I couldn't see you," Sandy said, coming to a stop close to Clyde's right side. "It is dark, yes," Clyde agreed. "And I don't know why I'm standing out here in the dark." To Sandy's ears, Clyde sounded like a zombie, and he asked, "Are you all right?" "Are you all right?" Sandy thought. "Of course he's not all right, you idiot. Otherwise he wouldn't be out here in the backyard not knowing why he is here when he should be in the laundry, for Christ's sake." I don't know," Clyde said. "I feel funny in the head," he said, touching his forehead. "Funny?" Sandy said. "What do you mean, funny?" "Like it is when you blow your nose too hard and you feel yourself go giddy type of funny." "Yes, I know that feeling," Sandy said. Following a brief pause, "If you're feeling a bit iffy, Clyde, might be a good idea to return to the house and sit down." "Yes." Back in the kitchen, Clyde seated at the table, Sandy standing at the sink making a fresh pot of tea. Clyde said, "Strange it was, Sandy. I remember taking the clothes out of the wash machine, then placing them into the dryer and starting the cycle, and the next thing I know I'm standing in the backyard." "That is strange. Ever happened before?" "Well, yes, now that I think about it. When I heard those 3 words, 'Who are you?' the second time, I remember shouting 'no'. Then the next thing I know I'm standing in the open doorway of the lounge room, with my right hand on the light switch, the light on, and I don't remember how I got there." Placing the teapot on the stand and covering it with the cosy, Sandy returned to the table, sat down, then said, "Other than that, has it happened in the past?" "No, never." "Probably just one of those things then," Sandy said. "The older you get, the more prone you become to all sorts of things. I know I'm nowhere near the man I used to be." "Maybe," Clyde said, but he was thinking, "I don't think so." Sandy was thinking, "It's stress. That's what it is. He's so wound up with everything that's been happening, he's like a jack-in-the-box waiting to spring up as soon as the lid is opened." "When was the last time you had a check-up?" Sandy asked. Clyde shrugged and said, "I don't know. Can't remember. Might be time you did then." Yes. Yes, I think I will. Got a real good doctor in town, been around for donkey's years, Doc Saunders has. One of them old-fashioned doctors, with a wealth of experience about every disease known to mankind he is. Clyde smiled and said, with a recommendation like that, then Dr. Saunders it will be. There is another doctor sharing the same surgery. Young bloke he is. Pakistani, I think. I've been to see him a few times when Doc Saunders ain't around, and he's pretty good too. It's always nice to have options, Clyde said. A minute later, a hot mug of tea on the table before each, Sandy asked, "You feeling any better, Clyde?" "Much better, yes." "Feeling a little peckish, as a matter of fact." "You hungry, Sandy?" "A couple of biscuits be good, thanks, Clyde." After placing the biscuit barrel on the table, Clyde raided the refrigerator, returning to them placing the remains of the roasted chicken on the table along with a tub of soft butter and a loaf of bread. "Didn't you have dinner?" Sandy asked, dunking a ginger nut biscuit into his tea. "Only a chicken sandwich about an hour or so ago." "Maybe that's why you went funny in the head. You was hungry." "I don't think so, but I guess just about anything is possible." Lifting the ginger nut biscuit clear of the hot liquid, Sandy, much to his dismay, watched as the soaked half instantly parted company with its solid half and belly flopped into the tea and disappeared from view. "God damn it! We got a teaspoon handy, Clyde?" "In the drawer to your left." "I'll tell you one thing that ain't possible," Sandy said, returning to his chair, teaspoon in hand. "And that's for them biscuit makers to make ginger nuts like they used to be." And as Sandy went fishing for and finding biscuit remnants, carefully lifting the teaspoon and its cargo clear from the tea to his mouth, again and again, Clyde couldn't help but laugh. And as Clyde laughed, Sandy looked up at him, then down, and up, down, up. Then Clyde said, I haven't seen anyone do that for ages." "Yes, well, I wouldn't have to do it if the biscuit was as hard as it used to be." "They were, weren't they?" Clyde managed to say before he burst out laughing again. "Broke a tooth on one of them a long time ago, I did. That's how hard they were." A couple of minutes later, Clyde had managed again to get his laughter under control, although a tickle in his throat and his state of mind threatened a repeat performance given the slightest opportunity, while Sandy, his fishing expedition over, had rolled and was smoking a cigarette, and he said, "You've got colour back in your face after that belly laugh, but how are you feeling?" "Good. I'm feeling pretty good." "I'm glad to hear it," Sandy said. After drawing on his cigarette and blowing smoke from the corner of his mouth, he looked at Clyde and said, "You still haven't given me an answer about camping at Tor Hill. So what's it to be?" Clyde remained silent for several seconds before answering. "Why the hell not? Might be the opportunity for me to be rid of all this stuff going around in my head once and for all." "Certainly can't hurt," Sandy said. "But not until after you see Doc Saunders, eh? I'll make an appointment first thing in the morning." "Good. You won't have long to wait to see him, a day, maybe two. You don't have to be concerned with camping gear. I'll get everything we need in the caravan except for food. Other than that, all you need is clothes and bedding. Warm clothes too. It'll be warm to hot through the day, but the night will still be cold even at this time of the year." "What about Alma, Sandy? She won't mind you going away?" "Nah, she'll be glad to be rid of me." After draining his mug, Sandy glanced at his watch, 10:02. "Anyhow, it's getting on and I guess I should head for home, unless you'd like me to stay the night." "Be happy to do that, no problem whatsoever. I appreciate the offer, I really do. But no, I'll be fine." "Okay then, but only if you're sure." "I'm sure," Clyde said, then smiled. But Clyde wasn't sure. Not in the least. At the front door, Clyde said, "Thanks for coming over, Sandy. It meant a lot to me." "Hey, what are friends for?" "Good night, Clyde." "Good night, Sandy." Back in the kitchen, Clyde busied himself tidying up, thinking when he picked up Sandy's mug and teaspoon. And they're smaller too. those biscuits. But then everything is smaller these days. After returning the butter to the refrigerator and the bread to the bread bin, he separated 2 double pages from an old newspaper, scraped the remains of the chicken from the plate onto the top layer, placed the plate in the sink, then wrapped up the scraps and placed the bundle in the kitchen tidy. At the sink he turned on the hot water tap, rinsed the plate clean, rinsed out the 2 mugs, then rinsed off the teaspoon and knife. Thought of washing up, but then decided not to and turned the tap off. From the kitchen to the laundry where, finding the dryer in cooling mode, he thought, close enough is good enough. Opened the door, removed the load, turned the dryer off and made his way to, then entered the master bedroom. Dropped the bundle onto the bed, folded his clothes, put away, returned the towel to the ensuite, folded it lengthwise before draping over the rack. All done, he said out loud. He was restless now and not the least bit tired. Must do something to keep myself busy, he mumbled. Looking around the ensuite, there wasn't a thing out of place. In the bedroom, neat as a pin. From the bedroom across the hall into the sitting room, now his office, everything was in an ordered state. And he grumbled, why aren't you a messy so-and-so? Walking over to his desk where, after seating himself, he booted up one of the 2 laptops thinking he might be able to write. Or if not write, then at least go over what he had already written. His daily schedule was to write at least 1,000 words. Anything less than he felt he was shirking his responsibility to his audience of readers. But more often than not he wrote 3, 4 and occasionally 10 times that amount. Those times when the words flowed, and there was no holding back that flow. But no matter the amount of words written on any given day, he was in the habit, and a good one at that, to read what he had written the previous day. Being a self-published author, he had to be his own editor. So it was paramount that he made sure there was continuity with the words and more importantly, that he liked what he read. For if he didn't like what he read, then his readers wouldn't like it either, nor would he expect them to. But as he moved the pointer to the Microsoft Word icon, he hesitated clicking the mouse button, moving the pointer and then clicking Google Chrome instead. A sudden thought. Fugue state. The reason. Clyde was familiar with the term, had come across it several times in a few of the countless novels he had read over the years. And maybe what he had experienced was similar to that particular condition. Typing psychological condition fugue state, he pressed the enter button and in no time at all, on the first page, second from the top, was the heading for Wikipedia fugue state. That, with a click of the mouse, instantly became a page dedicated to the condition. He commenced reading to himself. A fugue state, formerly dissociative fugue, is a rare psychiatric disorder characterized by reversible amnesia for personal identity, including the memories, personality and other identifying characteristics of individuality. The state is usually short-lived, hours to days, but can last months or longer. Maybe not fugue then, Clyde thought. Toward the bottom of the opening paragraph, fugues are usually precipitated by a stressful episode, and upon recovery there may be amnesia for the original stressor. Maybe fugue after all, he muttered. Further reading informed him of clinical conditions along with 3 case histories which, in a nutshell, were all one of the same. Amnesia. A fugue state is amnesia by any other name. One case history was of particular interest, though. That of Agatha Christie, who disappeared on 3 December 1926 only to reappear 11 days later in a hotel in Harrogate, apparently with no memory of the events which happened during that time span. He printed all the information for future reference. 1 page on the monitor, 4 pages from the printer. But of course, then he logged off. Not in the mood to read my own writing, he said, sitting back in the chair. And then a thought. Maybe I should jot down the extraordinary events of the day. But no sooner that thought than another. No need to do that. I won't forget what happened. Being at a loss as to what to do, the thought of washing up, little as there was, Suddenly seemed like a good idea. Busy hands and that sort of thing. Less than a minute later he was doing that. Less than 2 minutes later he had finished. Checking the teapot he found there was more than enough for a mug, a minute in the microwave and Bob's your uncle. Sitting at the kitchen table he sipped his tea, looked at the cigar resting on the saucer, thought of relighting it but decided not to. He had taken no more than a dozen puffs, so he wasn't about to place it in the kitchen tidy. But he wasn't prepared to let it lie around and compromise the air in the kitchen either. He was doing that already, and come the morning the entire house would reek of the smell. By the time Clyde returned to the table with a small zip-top plastic bag, the cigar had disappeared from the saucer and was now on the kitchen floor. And Clyde's first thought was, I must have bumped the table when I stood before heading to the pantry. But when he bent low from the waist to pick it up, it suddenly rolled across the floor until it came to stop against the kickboard under the cupboards, below the sink bench top, as if it had a will of its own. Clyde's reaction, that of a man witnessing the impossible but knowing it wasn't, but desperately trying to convince himself that it didn't happen, but knowing it did while wanting all along to do something but not knowing what he should or could do. In other words, Clyde was fixed to the spot, totally confused and scared out of his wits, unable to move. Then he heard those 3 words again. Who are you? And his legs gave way and he fell to the floor onto his knees, lowering his torso until his forehead touched the floor, clasping his hands to his ears, eyes closed, but somehow managing to say, I'm Clyde Phillimore, Clyde Phillimore, Clyde Phillimore, Clyde Phillimore. Now leave me alone. Do you hear me? Leave me alone. And as he remained a compact mass on the floor, hands clasped behind his ears, whispering, leave me alone, over and over and over, he heard a whisper of another voice say, diary, diary, diary. Then it was gone, and Clyde stopped whispering too. When he opened his eyes a few seconds, a few minutes later, he didn't know. All he could see was the blurred pattern of linoleum and a hint of white light in his peripheral vision. The only sound that of the beat of his heart, his mind alive with the echo of one word, diary, diary, diary. I think that might do for this episode. I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.